Story Guy here again. Hello. Last time I started reading from Nursite's story that goes back a few years, or winters as he would call it, to kind of explain to Don what this whole Tower of Il Serrohe business is about. And one of the things that I usually share with audiences when I do readings, when I go to do a signing or appearance, is that this story that you heard starting last week and will go for several more chapters is the very beginning of this whole story, not only the book Tower of Il Serrohe, but the entire series, Rio Grande Parallax series. And this was the beginning. It was a novelette that I wrote many years ago. I'm not going to say how many. And this is where I had the idea, hey, why not set a fantasy story in a New Mexico setting? It's a high southwestern desert that's true of many areas, not only of New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, California, Nevada, many areas in even the northern western states like Idaho and Montana, eastern portions of Oregon and Washington. All of those areas look very similar and have a similar higher elevation and desert landscape like you see in this story. And even parts of Texas, especially West Texas. So anyway, that's where the idea came from, was this little story about Nursite and the Gnomon fighting the Sore Eyes. So we'll continue today with chapters 19 and 20. And oh, you may have noticed the new background there. Now, some people might say, wait, doesn't that look a little winter-like? I like to think of it as a blue moon shining over the desert hills and mountains of our setting. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Here we go, chapter 19, as Nursite continues his story. The waning orange light of the setting sun cast flecks of amber in the floor of the forest. Branches that arched above and interlaced in a hopeless tangle provided an almost solid roof against the sky. The tabletop plateau of heavy, imposing cottonwoods, pines, and piñons made a comfortable site for the hundreds of root homes of the Gnomon. Place of homes. Such a comfort to walk in the well-worn paths, listening to the sounds of people living, the approach of evening and the smell of cooking, wood, hot sunflower oil, fried okra, and the boiling pasoli, well laced with red chili. But the security that such scents usually conjured was denied by the aching bones of defeat and frustration. What good was a place of homes if no wood was slowly hacked away from around us? Will we be pushed up on the slopes, forced to claw our way up the cliffs of Tomei steeples that cradle the entire southwest corner of the No-Wood Mesa, only to live brutally among the flighty lynxmen? They're cunning but reclusive hunters, keeping to themselves except when trading furs for our chili. But what if we were driven to their steeples? Would we be able to live in peace in their territory? Would our children be safe? My hole, covered by an almost upright round stone at the base of a middle-aged cottonwood, didn't seem as inviting as I desired. Pulling back the flagstone, I descended into the dark, tight cavern. My sunflower oil lamp must have burned out. I felt about, grasping a thick winding root, and followed it to my table. Coals glowed beneath the pottery plate in the center of the heavy pine table. Lighting a straw, I started to get another jar of oil when I realized I didn't want to sit at home alone. The dark dampness of the place didn't feel inviting. When it was fully glassed in, it would be better. I came back out and headed to Nether-Air's nearby place. The sun was leaving coral shadows streaking through dim shafts of light that intruded upon our place of homes. Nether-Air's root house was small, situated under a young cottonwood, a good fit for her unusually small stature, even for a Gnomon female. She made my average height seem gigantic. I squeezed through her door, removing the censer from my belt, and swung it in front of me, allowing my Cygnus scent of roasted piñon nut to fill her living chamber. It was dimly lit by one lamp, and the slender roots of the cottonwood left deep shadows as they arched to the peak of the chamber. No one home. She probably had serious wounds to dress. I guess I was lucky to be young and delegated to the rear in battles, while the older, more experienced warriors met the tall, sore eyes wading through us like herons among ducks. I moved on. The shafts of light were now feeble, violet, allowing me to barely see my way to the cottonwood of Needle Eye's root house. After allowing my significant to permeate Needle Eye's living chamber, I gave up and turned to leave. "Hey, Nurse Eye, in here," came an unusually calm and quiet voice. "Needle Eye?" "Yes, come in. To your right." I pulled a flaxen curtain aside and entered a small chamber shaped by a spiraling root. Needle Eye sat cross-legged on a soft carpet of down feathers, while a pile of rare bristle-scone pine needles burned nearby. The timeless incense of these needles filled the chamber and my nostrils. I knew nothing but that scent. As I settled down, I became as timeless as the bristle-cone pine trees that grew forever on distant granite steeples, far beyond the western horizon. What could be hours in the timeless state may only be a brief moment beyond the reach of the strong incense of the bristle-cone pine. Or a moment could be days. Needle Eye knew the kind of comfort a battle-weary body needed. Being timeless, nothing could be felt except an unchanging state of being. I tried to talk, but timelessness doesn't allow it. Only being, nothing more. Whoa, well, that's kind of a change from the battle scene earlier. Let's go on to chapter 20. Rising reluctantly, we moved out to his large stone table, taking seats at the narrow end of its trapezoidal shape. The timeless incense was a gray heap of spent ash. I placed a pinch of the ash on my waist censer to give me hours of mild comfort as my significant burned. Ow! I dropped a small speck of glowing ash on my leg. You're getting enough burn scars on your left leg to identify yourself clearly as an omen. That's a kind way to say I've burned myself silly at least 100 times since my 10th winter and the initiation of the ranks of the Signicented. I could really get tired of his remarks about my troubles. He continued without missing a stroke. And now that you've got the scars of a man, when are you going to widen your palate? I love women almost as half as much as you do, which is twice as much as the normal gnomon, but Needle Eye, I don't want to have any woman share my palate right now. By the wood, boy, any woman's better than celibacy. I'm not, well, I wouldn't want to spend the rest of my life. He bent toward me and looked through me with timeless bright eyes. Do you want to smell the wild roses or taste them? Now leave nether air out of this. We're friends since we've been kids. Ah, now that's a beautiful little bundle of warmth. Don't you ever wonder what she'd be like on your palate? Well, sure, but that's none of your business. Well, I'll make her my business if you don't. Needle Eye, you're an old, mature man. She's a child. Children aren't shaped like that. If they are, then I'm ready to be fit for the old age nurse to move in and bury me before my time. I leaned back. He was right. She was stunning, and our long-time friendship just wasn't enough for me anymore. But how do you widen your palate for a friend? She probably thought of me as nothing more than the little boy who flitted through the trees like a wild wasp. I glanced up and allowed my eyes to wander over the glossy, smooth waterfall of glass that sealed the ceiling and walls of Needle Eye's entire root house. Needle Eye, I've barely got any of my home glassed in. I can teach you the finer points of the glassing, champ. I've got plenty of the proper incenses to lend you. It would take no more than a season of evenings to heat and melt the sand of your walls. My glassing incense is particularly nice. Mixed with your roasted pinon nut, it would truly be your root house. Perhaps even a bit of wild rose would ensure widening your palette. Yeah, that would be nice. But with the Tower of Il Serrohe casting its shadow across Norwood, what future of comfort do we have? You're looking too far ahead. Don't think like a sore eye. You make plans for what moves you. Hell, surprise her. She would widen your palette herself if you'll glass your root house with a pinch of wild rose. She's not a dense woman in her sight. No, but does she want me that way? Hell, she's a woman, and I don't see her with anybody else as much as with you, so... Still, the tower clouded my feeble vision. The trees in front of me were out of sight. What of those around the next bend of the path? Well, we'll have more the next time as we continue with chapter 21. This was a bit of a calm respite, I'm sure. It'll pick up next time. But it's good to know about timelessness. Until then, whenever that may be, bye.